So, as the end of 2023 draws ever closer, and our anticipation on a hopeful Switch 2 reveal and release in 2024 also draws ever closer, I want to discuss and revisit with you guys today the interesting and precarious situation Nintendo finds themselves in 2024, and what would happen if Nintendo actually isn't planning on releasing the Switch 2 next year. Now, the real reason that I ask this question is because for most of us, it's kind of a foregone conclusion that the Switch 2 will be revealed and released in 2024. And of course, I'm including myself in that conversation. It is absolutely my current prediction and thinking that next year, 2024, is the year to finally get a Switch 2 in our hands and see what Nintendo's next generation is going to look like. But we still know little enough, and by little enough, I mean basically nothing. Leaks and rumors aside, nothing is confirmed. And so with what we don't know, there is still absolutely an opportunity for Nintendo to surprise us and not have a next generation plan for 2024, and instead they might be planning for 2025. Even though in no world do I expect that to be the case, I think next year almost has to be their plan. We have to consider the fact that it might be something that they're planning for much later. So before I jump any deeper into kind of this rabbit hole and following this line of thinking, I do just want to remind you guys and make this disclaimer here at the beginning that I don't think this is the case. I absolutely think next year we will be seeing and probably playing the Switch 2. But for the sake of this conversation, it's just interesting to explore what happens if the other thing goes down and we don't actually see it. And so I want you to know it's not my prediction. I'm just trying to be open-minded and explore the other option on the table, right? So with that out of the way, how could Nintendo still maintain any momentum and success and popularity for the Switch and their brand if they don't transition to a next generation in 2024? And to me, obviously, it's no surprise to any of you. The answer is the games. They need to give us more significant, real, brand new games and not just be relying on Mario games and not just be relying on re-releases of old games. Look, man, I know that the Paper Mario remake next year is going to be a really big deal and a big release for a lot of people, and even though I'm not really a Paper Mario guy, I'm definitely going to be picking that up and giving it a shot because I am a GameCube guy, and it's just a game that I skipped because those kinds of games don't typically appeal to me, but I love Mario, I love the GameCube era. It's a Switch game we know that Nintendo is releasing in 2024 as of right now. And since I've never played it, I'm excited to at least give it a shot, and I'm sure I will enjoy it. But, games like that and Mario vs. Donkey Kong and whatnot, they're fine, but they're not big deals and they're not system sellers. The Princess Peach game, obviously a little bit more significant in the sense that it's a new game. Princess Peach Showtime, it's called. It's a new game, so it carries with it a little bit different weight, and I think that it's also going to be a pretty solid game, and I think that it'll do okay for itself given what the game is. But I mean, realistically, outside of these few Mario Universe titles that we know they're releasing next year, there's nothing else to go on. And so if Nintendo is really planning on delaying their next generation release another year beyond 2024, which I think would be such a mistake and actually really hurt them, which is part of why I don't think it is going to be the plan. But again, for the sake of conversation, if that is something that they're going to end up doing, they need a hell of a lot more than these couple of smaller tier Mario Universe games to release. The obvious initial solution we all think of is Metroid Prime 4. They gotta release that game next year, especially if there is no Switch 2. Now, if there is a Switch 2, I do think Metroid Prime 4 could be revealed next year and then released in 2025. That's a different story. But again, going down the line of thinking of there being no Switch 2 next year, I think Metroid Prime 4 would have to be a must. And that in and of itself could still kind of be a roundabout positive for the Switch 2 as well, because as most of us I think already believe, there is a great chance that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a cross-generation release and be a Switch release and a Switch 2 release, and there could be an opportunity for them to release the Switch version next year, get us all excited. It's going to look great even on the Nintendo Switch's hardware. It's going to be the game we've been waiting for. I am going to just cry my eyes out the first time I see this game, let alone the first time I play it. I'm going to take like 2 weeks off of work whenever this thing releases. I just can't wait. And so if they release a Switch version next year without even giving us a hint at a Switch 2 version, it could release, it could be great, we'd all buy it and love it and play it, and it would definitely perform well. I know it will sell very, very well. And then if the Switch 2 ends up being revealed and released in like 2025, All they have to do is say, here's the definitive edition Metroid Prime 4 for the Switch 2 now, and it's going to look that much better. And maybe even offer a paid upgrade patch for the Switch version if there's backwards compatibility. And so there could be like a double win in the Metroid situation if Nintendo were to go this route by waiting another year to reveal the Switch 2. But that would also mean that Metroid Prime 4 would have to be ready by next year in 2024, which I already do think is the plan and very possible. So it would just be interesting to see how that would play out. But again, the larger point is, if they're not planning the next generation for next year, then I don't see a world where they could hold off with Metroid Prime 4. It's got to release next year. Other than that, we start to get into really tricky territory, because this falls under the category of games and franchises that I think Nintendo is holding off to be ready for the Switch 2. But if they're not going to reveal the Switch 2 next year, and if they're going to make us wait and keep playing the 2017 Switch, we're talking about big games that would have to release next year to keep any momentum up for Nintendo and the Switch. Beyond Metroid Prime 4, I do think a new 3D Mario game comes on the table. I also think Mario Kart 9 comes on the table. The new Pokemon game, whatever they're going to do because Pokemon is an annual release, I think that also makes sense for next year. And some kind of Zelda release. I mean, that could be the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, those kinds of games. And in fact, I'll even go back to the Metroid thing for a minute, and I guess you could say that they could hold off on Metroid Prime 4 by releasing Metroid Primes 2 and 3. But again, if you're talking about Metroid Primes 2 and 3, and you're talking about Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, you're still relying more on old games. Think about it. At that point, if that was what Nintendo was going to do, to carry their 2024 while they delay releasing the Switch 2, we'd be looking at a re-release of a Mario vs. Donkey Kong game, a re-release of Luigi's Mansion 2, a re-release of Paper Mario, a re-release of Metroid Prime 2, of Metroid Prime 3, of Zelda Wind Waker, of Zelda Twilight Princess, right? Holy freaking smokes, that is so many old release games on the table. Again, the Zelda and Metroid games are theoretical, but I think they're part of the conversation and stuff that we all think about. And so, if Nintendo wasn't going to release a new Metroid game, and a new Mario game, and a new Mario Kart game, and a new Zelda game, we have to be looking at re-releasing these old Zelda and old Metroid games. And we're just looking at so many stinking old games in 2024 in any crazy world where this turned out to be true. And it's like, they're great games, and I think we'd all enjoy playing them on our Switch, but is that really what we want, a whole year of Nintendo to be old games? I sure don't think so. I don't want that. I want new games, just like I want a new Switch. And so going back to this larger point here, I don't think that Nintendo wants to release a new Mario game and a new Mario Kart game or a new Smash Brothers or a new Animal Crossing or whatever the heck. Pokemon notwithstanding, I think they would do another Switch Pokemon, but these other franchises, Smash Brothers and Animal Crossing and, Mario Kart and whatnot, I don't think they want to be releasing these games on the current Switch. The install base is there, yes, and it's going to help them do well, but I think they need to really have a lot of exclusive next-generation games ready to continue the momentum and make us all know that we have to buy a Switch 2 once that's out. So, I think Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, and Animal Crossing, and any other franchise you can think of, those are all probably being saved for the next generation, which is why we come back to 2024, and it's one of the many reasons why I don't see how they could be delaying the Switch 2 beyond next year. I know that we're spending this conversation kind of going down that rabbit hole because it's interesting, but to kind of wrap this up and come back to my thesis statement, I think it almost explains why they can't do that. Unless something is falling apart behind the scenes that is going to force their hand to wait on the Switch 2, like they just can't have the hardware ready. Same with Metroid Prime 4. Maybe they've been delaying it because they just don't have that game ready. If they don't have the hardware ready, then they can't release and reveal it next year because it would be too early. So, we have to remove that from the conversation. Let's assume that the Switch 2 hardware is not going through development hell and it's close to being finalized. I don't see them delaying past 2024. There's too much on the table. There's too much at stake. They've got still some pretty decent momentum with the Switch and all these great games that released in 2023. I mean, look at how many games are nominated for all these categories, including 2 for Game of the Year. There's no reason for them to wait and make us sit on the Switch, man. We need Switch 2. They need games for Switch 2. Metroid Prime 4, 3D Mario, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, Animal Crossing. the next Splatoon game, whatever. Pick a franchise. They all have to be ready for the Switch 2. I just know it. So these are things as I see it. This is my breakdown of the landscape of Nintendo and the current Switch and the Switch 2 and the 2024 situation, and just my personal, opinion and perspective as a lifelong game fan and Nintendo fan on what I think Nintendo's situation is going into next year. Again, you guys, we have a month and a half. We're down to like 6 weeks before 2023 is over, and we're in 2024. And I know some people are still holding on to hope on a Switch 2 reveal this year. And you know me, for a couple of years, I thought it was going to happen. And sure, it's not impossible yet, but it's really hard for me to see them doing that. They might do some kind of exciting reveal at the Game Awards, but I don't think it would be the Switch 2. I mean, Nintendo could surprise us at any moment, but it's certainly not my personal prediction. So I think we need to start preparing for 2024. What's that going to look like for Nintendo? What will that look like for their next generation, their Switch 2? Obviously, Metroid Prime 4 is still top of mind for me, but I think that factors into their next generation plans anyway. So, who knows, man? We'll have to see how things play out. Tell me what you think about my breakdown. What do you think 2024 looks like for Nintendo if they delay the console to 2025? Do you think that will help or hurt them? And how do they make 2024 still a solid, exciting year for Nintendo and the Switch, while also preparing big games for the Switch 2 the following year, if that was what they were planning? Talk about all these thoughts below, and that's about it.